As the government's response to COVID-19 continues to develop and change, we wanted to take a moment to address some questions we have been hearing and to reiterate the importance of government officials treating churches equally throughout all stages of their COVID-19 response. After weeks of government-imposed shutdowns, the White House unveiled Guidelines for Opening Up America, a three-phased approach that is based on the advice of public health experts. Many state and local governments seem to be following the federal government's general recommendations and adopting their own phased or staged approach to reopening. While each specific plan will undoubtedly differ in timing and details, we should all expect that they share at least this one common trait: they must be constitutional. We recognize these past couple of months have been difficult and that hard decisions must be made. And we continue to pray daily for our government leaders. In fact, we applaud the good work that is being done to stop the spread of the coronavirus, and we encourage you to heed the advice of authorities who recommend social distancing and other means necessary to stop the spread of the virus. But the Constitution is not suspended in times of crisis, and Alliance Defending Freedom is committed to ensuring that churches and people of faith are treated fairly throughout this entire process, and that the government properly considers and respects your constitutional rights. Just like before COVID-19, churches deserve fair and equal treatment. It is always wrong for government officials to treat churches worse than secular businesses or organizations. That is why ADF recently came alongside churches in 4 different parts of the country, resulting in 4 wins for the Constitution and religious freedom. Here's what happened. First, we had an issue in Greenville, Mississippi. As the congregation of Temple Baptist Church sat in their cars and listened to their pastor's sermon over the radio, with their windows rolled up and in the church parking lot, 8 police officers busted up the service and issued $500 fines. But just down the street, a drive-in restaurant was taking orders and serving customers. No tickets were issued there. There was no harassment. But why? Because the city had issued an executive order banning only drive-in church services. The city singled churches out. You could do drive-in food, but you couldn't do drive-in sermons. That's unconstitutional, and we filed a lawsuit to defend the church and its members. Thankfully, by God's grace, our lawsuit caused the Greenville City Council to waive the $500 fines and issue a new order lifting the ban on drive-in church services. We had a similar issue in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The city banned drive-in church services, but allowed drive-in restaurants and retailers to remain open. ADF attorneys sent a letter explaining that the order was unconstitutional, but city officials ignored the letter, so ADF was forced to file a lawsuit on behalf of Metropolitan Tabernacle Church. We got another great victory there when city officials reversed the order and resolved that issue. Then in Kansas, 2 small rural churches were told that they had to have fewer than 10 people at their religious services, even though they had implemented strict social distancing and sanitation measures. But the governor had decided that large retail businesses and office buildings need not comply with that numerical limitation. That's not fair and it's not constitutional. Thankfully, in response to ADF's lawsuit, the Kansas governor announced a new executive order that no longer singles out churches for disfavored treatment. Now, the last issue I'll mention concerned churches in Wake County, North Carolina. Their local officials allowed restaurants to remain open, but banned churches from collecting in-person tithes and distributing communion. The restaurants could hand out food and exchange money in the area, but handing out prepackaged communion elements and accepting tithes violated the law. Again, not only was that unfair, it was unconstitutional. So we sent a demand letter. And in response, the county announced that churches can now provide that prepackaged communion elements and accept tithes. Another victory by God's grace. Now that states and local governments are starting to announce their reopening plans and gradually lifting restrictions, we wanted to remind everyone that the Constitution still applies. Because each jurisdiction is different, government action as it relates to reopening must be considered on a case-by-case basis and reviewed carefully. But just like always, churches cannot be treated worse than similarly situated organizations. So if you think your church is being treated unfairly, in ways similar to what I just shared, or even in other ways, please contact us. Together, we can ensure that the Constitution is respected and that religious freedom is upheld. And together, we can keep the doors open for the gospel. God bless.